घट राम बोले, राम बोले, राम बिना बोले रे। सब है घट राम बोले, राम बोले, राम बिना बोले रे। राम बिना बोले रे, राम बिना बोले रे। सब घट राम बोले, राम बोले, राम बिना बोले रे। एकल माटी कुंचर चीती भाजन है बहुनाना रे, भाजन है बहुनाना रे। एकल माटी कुंचर चीती भाजन है बहुनाना रे, भाजन है बहुनाना रे। अस्थावर जंगम कीट पतंगम, अस्थावर जंगम कीट पतंगम। घट घट राम समाना रे, घट घट राम समाना रे। सब घट राम बोले, राम बोले, राम बिना बोले रे। को बोले राम बिना बोले रे, राम बिना बोले, राम बिना बोले रे, राम बिना बोले रे, राम बिना बोले रे। सब घट राम बोले, राम बोले, राम बिना बोले रे। एकल चिंता राख अनंता, और तजो सब आशा रे, और तजो सब आशा रे। एकल चिंता राख अनंता, और तजो सब आशा रे, और तजो सब आशा रे। प्रणवै नाम भय नहीं कामा, प्रणवै नाम भय नहीं कामा। कोठा कर को दासारे, कोठा कर को दासारे। सब घट राम बोले, राम बोले, राम बिना बोले रे। को बोले रे, राम the history says that as the words would start flowing through the body of Guru Nanak, he will give a hint to Mardana to start the rabab. Now Mardana was an accomplished musician. He knew what raga, at what time, in what season to start. So it was not mandated by Guru Nanak कि मर्दाने आज शी राग गानु जी करता है सो जाओ ये थोड़ा छेड़ दिया. It makes no sense. It was not mandated. It was Mardana who actually achieved to the Brahmgyan, because there are 2 hymns by Mardana in Guru Granth. So the reason it became in a raga, because going into the state of samadhi did not have a time, space and season. It happens when it happens. When His grace comes, the words start flowing, and as that energy starts flowing, Mardana would automatically start on that particular raga of that particular season of that particular time. And hence these words we see, they were then afterward noted down and compiled. The 5th master, Guru Arjan, then gathered all of that and gave it a shape, a form. And then the final master, the Guru Gobind Singh, gave the form that we see today. So this discussion about that the ragas are predominant than the words is, I think, is misplaced. As we have seen that in order to help the consciousness to quiet down, the music is helpful. Now when we say कि आज बहुत मजा आया, I enjoyed it very much today. Well, what happened? So and so was singing, or so and so was talking, and I enjoyed it very much. That's also an illusion. What's happening here is the maza aya, anand aya, chain aya, swad aya. It's not because somebody is doing from outside. Farid says, and we have gone through that journey, he says, Aaj milawa Sheikh Farid, takam kunjadiyan, mano machandadiyan. He says, you can actually experience the ultimate right now. Because he's here. Always, all the time, right here, right this moment. It is possible. Sikhism is the only one which makes that promise. Otherwise, itni meditation karo, itni bhakti karo, inne daan karo, inne pun karo, inne puja karo, phir aayo. You say, absolutely. It is given to you, it's already there. So what is in your way? He says, takam kunjadiyan, tokla, unna kunjanu, kunjade udde ne, panchi. Kaun ud raha? ਮਨੋਂ ਮਚੰਦੜੀਆਂ, ਮਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵਿਚਾਰਾਂ ਨੇ, ਥਾਟਸ ਨੇ, ਸ਼ੋਰ ਮਚਾਇਆ ਹੋਇਆ. Your own, what you have gotten from outside is making so much noise that what is inside is not visible to you. So he says, if you can stop that, if you can stop that process right now, in other words, whatever you have learned from the outside, अगर उसका शोर विचार हटा दे, take it out, quiet the mind down, and you will feel the bliss. मनों मचंदड़ियां, इन्होंने इन्ना शोर मचाया हुआ है मन के अंदर कि उसके अंदर का जड़ा अनहद नाद है, साउंडलेस साउंड है, you can't hear it. So if you want to hear that right now, at this moment, experiment karna. Stop it. So Jado, you see, when we say that, I enjoyed it very much, what is happening actually? For that moment, that thought process which could have been making noise gets suspended. And you feel the bliss from inside. The bliss is because that noise has gone down, not because somebody is saying something, not because somebody is singing something, not somebody is performing something. Now, if that was the vehicle technique to shut the mind down, okay, fine. You can give the credit to that. But the real bliss or real peace that you are experiencing is coming from inside you. What is that bliss? The quietness. No other thought going through. No other worry. Nothing else. No disturbance. A peace. No waves of the ocean. And suddenly you feel blissful. And that is inside you. Imagine if this was to shut down forever. What kind of a bliss that would be? And that's the whole effort. It's an instrument, and that was my objective of giving you that the Sikh theosophy, organized religion, has actually gotten distracted this way, that they have now put so much emphasis on the rhythm and the beat and the swara, that the Shabad itself and the meaning of the Shabad itself is totally disappeared. So everybody who comes to the stage says, Mera gana sun lo, Mera rag sun lo, Meri taan sun lo, Meri sargam sun lo. And they have no clue कि वो word की कह रहे हैं. And they don't want to know about it. So, and that's where we have lost. And the objective of putting this together and giving to the people was, Guru Nanak said, समझे, सूझे, पढ़ पढ़, बूझे. Whatever you are going to do, whatever you're going to read, stop over it, think about it, get behind the words. And that's where we were last week. That's why this is the only Granth which started without the words. It started with a number. Everything that is going to be done now from this point onward is going to be in words. And he has already declared by putting 1 on the start, saying, I cannot say it in words. Understand that every word that will be spoken from this point onward, written, would fall short of what I'm trying to communicate. So go beyond the words. Don't get trapped by the words. That was the whole message in the very beginning. And then the next symbol next to it is ik-oNkaar, and ik-oNkaar is a special shape like Om, and we went through that last time. So just to keep the continuity, that's dhun, that is symbolic of infinite, because the way it is shaped is, then there is an infinite pointing out to, it is anhadanad, it's sound, but endless sound. It is not created. Now why it is anahad? In order to create sound, you need 2 objects. It's a vibration, you need to create the vibration. Zenism calls it a ek haath ki taali. Now, isn't it amazing? Asio sadi kahavat hai ji taali mein 2 haath chahiye. Zen master tells the disciple, go sit on that hill and try to hear the sound of ek haath ki taali. That is the sound which is not created because of the 2 objects. Why? Because he is one. That sound is coming because of him. He is not striking anything. He doesn't have a physical form. We have 2 vocal cords on which the wind is blowing, and these are giving the sound.
Could you say that sound is not created?
That's exactly right. It is not a creation. It is not created. It is being. Okay. So that's why it is so difficult to communicate. You can only feel it. You can only say, yeah, I'm trying to catch it. That's about it. Otherwise you haven't heard it. Now, if it is a sound, from this point on the words are going to start. Now what happens when something comes into existence? The very first act of existence, we want to communicate with that. A child is born, so what is the first thing? It's an alabuji. Narakweza. Why? How am I going to address the child? I need to name it. Baba Nanak says, now this became a problem for him too. He says, Api ne aap saajyo. saibhaN तो के पैदा तो कर लिया अपने आप को हुण की करना सी कहते सैकंड एक्ट केड़ा होया आपी ने रचियो नाम नाम रचनात्मक है नाम रखा नहीं गया सिलेक्टेड नहीं मीनिंग व्हाट मेरे वर्गे का नाम को मां बाप प्यार नाल शेर सिंह रख सकते हैं तो भावें चूहा कर जाए तो मेरी जान निकल जाए ना शेर सिंह है ना धर्म सिंह है तो काम सारे को करम दे मतलब की my being and my name are not together. They are not synonymous. Whereas जे किसी ने उसदे कोलों किरपा लै ली तो उन्होंने किरपा निधान कह दिता जे उसदे पालन वाल ध्यान च लगा तो उन्होंने परवरदिगार कह दिता जे वो सारियां विच नजर आ गया तो उन्होंने राम कहता जी रमया होया मीनिंग उसदे कर्म विच उसदा नाम निकलदा है साडे कर्म विच साडा नाम नहीं निकलदा Our name is fixed, which is totally contradictory to our nature. Whereas that one which we are trying to define, name comes from the doing, the being. Out of the nature, क्योंकि करता है ना करतार बन गया So, तुर्की नाम है क्योंकि सत नाम Now, sat word needs to be understood. What is the naam? Naam rakhiya ki sat naam. Now, normally when you translate it, it will be called a truth. Okay. So if you ask me how much 2 plus 2 and I say 4, am I telling the truth or not? Right. But is that a truth or is it a fact? Because it is a consensual reality. Mathematicians got together and agreed on a terminology. When you take this symbol, add to this symbol, call it this symbol. So they actually not only fixed the number, the mathematical operation, but the end result also.
Is blackboard so as compared to university?
No, it would be instead of the factual, existential. We're going to go deeper into this because it is these things are extremely important too, because it from this point onward, these are the 10 words. Again, they are the most precise characteristics that you can put in a language. Otherwise, you have to write a dissertation. In a single word, try to capture some essence of trying to point out to that ultimate. And that's what the attempt here is, to give the feeling as to what are we going to be talking about for the rest of the 1430 pages. So Satya or such bowl. Okay, let's take a wooden rod. एक लकड़ का डंडा ले लिया, ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਰੱਖਿਆ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਜਸਵੰਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਇਹ ਡੰਡਾ ਸਿੱਧਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਟੇਢਾ ਹੈ? मैं देख के जी बिल्कुल सीधा है। Am I telling the truth? On the surface it looks like it, right? Then you take that rod and dip into the bucket of water. Now we all know that at the boundary of the water, because of the refraction, it's going to bend. So is the danda siddha or teda? What should I say now? It's the same. Now if I say the rod is straight, you're going to pull it out and say, you can keep it in the water and say, look at it, it's bent. And if I say it's bent, you can pull it out and say, look, it's straight. You made a liar out of me, didn't you? Is it a truth? Is it a satya? That which is affected by the illusion of the senses can be a consensual agreement and a reality, but not a satya. Take another example. If you bring the ice cube and sit over here and put my hand on it and ask me, what are you feeling? I'll say, it's cold. Okay. Now I can leave this hand for 5 minutes. You take that ice, bring another ice cube. What's my hand going to feel now? Pretty much the same. What happened to the cold? Or I can take this hand and put it in the hot water and then put it in the normal water. I'm going to feel that one cold. So what's happening here? My senses are deceiving me because senses are relative. Every sense is relative. Normally we say कि ਜਿਹੜਾ ਜੇ ਅੱਖਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਵੇਖਿਆ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਸੱਚ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ। ये ਅੱਖਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਵੇਖਿਆ ਸੱਚ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ। As a kid, I used to read Perry Mason a lot. And he would create an argument that if somebody sees somebody on the outside of the door, is that person coming in or going out? How would you determine that? I mean, he will turn it around completely. Why? ਅੱਖਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਜੀ ਉਹ ਅੰਦਰ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਸੀ ਬਾਉਂਡਰੀ ਤੇ How do you know on the boundary ਅੰਦਰ ਆ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਬਾਹਰ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਅੱਖਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਹੈ All the 5 senses of the human body are deceptive in nature. Every one of them. They cannot feel or tell the satya. They can define some facts only because there is a consensual reality, because we have agreed as a society. But the one we are talking about is existential. It is not affected by any time or space or any senses. That which is, that's the word satya. So that naam, Satnam, is not defined by the human senses. It's not a creation of human mind or intellect. So that symbol signifies beautifully, and then Shloka will define it when we go to Adi Sach, Jugadi Sach, Hai bhi Sach, Nanak Hosi bhi Sach. Now, the mind can understand Adi, which is the past, hai bhi, which is the present, hosi bhi, which is the future. We know three, right? Three dimensions of the time. Past, present and the future. But there is one word in there called Jugadi. Adi Sach, Jugadi Sach. And that word adds the clarity as to what's being said. Jugadi. When the Jug was not born, when the concept of time wasn't known, when the intellect wasn't born to perceive the time. Arbad nirbha dhundu kara. Usun samad samayda. When you go beyond, when the measurement of time has not started, it is difficult for the intellect to perceive. But intellect wants to know. And therein lies the difficulty. Intellect can perceive something which has come after the intellect was born. You with me? You may be able to perceive something. In order for you to perceive, you have to be in existence first. Right? For the intellect to understand something, intellect must be there first. So if intellect itself isn't there, how will it ever perceive something which was before the intellect? And therein lies the difficulty. That's why it cannot be put in words. That's why it cannot be defined. The attempt of the intellect to define and understand and perceive something which was prior to its own existence. So what you do? You accept on faith. What you do? You go to the one who has actually experienced that. Well, who will experience that? Whose intellect is no more. Whose I is no more. That one will be pure awareness. That one can come back and give you a glimpse. I was reading a scientist by the name of John Lilly, and he raised a beautiful question, and I never thought of it till I read him. He says, when he went to India, see, he was doing the research here with the National Institute of Health and Sciences. He was doing some research, and his because as a MD doctor, he ended up into a mystical world, and everybody called him all kinds of names, and his grant was shut off. So he couldn't carry on the research. But yet he was motivated, so he ended up in India just to see as to what's going on there. And he noticed a phenomena. And the phenomena is that there is one so-called sadhu doing the meditation or bhakti or whatever else they do there, but there is an infrastructure around taking care of it. पंछी भी लाके नहीं आता कोई संत जी बिजी ने जाओ दूर दूर तक वो रोटी पानी खाना पकड़ सारा infrastructure supports that particular individual. And he started wondering, he said, well, this is a strange thing. What are these guys to do with him? And why are they supporting him? And then he hit upon the thought that the urge in the man to get a message from the beyond is so strong that they will say, you concentrate on getting the message from, we support everything else to you. That desire to know what is beyond the physical dimension. So if anybody is willing to dedicate the life to get the message from the beyond to them, they are willing to give everything and support it. And he says, now I understand why there are so many so-called saints in there, because all you need to do is say, I promise you, if I find out something from there, I'll come and tell you. But who knows whether you're going to find something there or not. So he says this urge in every soul, because the mind will never shut up and say, I don't know. I can't find it. Measurement of, I can say the French Revolution took place this, and I can read the history because it is in time and space. And I can relate with that even though I wasn't born then. Because the event is being explained in the context of the time and space. But when the concept of the time and space itself wasn't there, how would you define that event? When was this creation? How was this creation? Who is the creator? What he, she, it looks like? How would you define it? Because the event took place when the time-space intersection wasn't available. That's what I meant by saying intellect wasn't born. It cannot go past the space-time continuum. You can take the history today and you can measure with the strongest telescope and the Hubbles and everything, and they can tell you so many millions of light years have gone by, and they have. But they have to say so many millions of years have gone by. Otherwise, how do you put that intersection of time and space? Therein lies the difficulty. So as I was saying, that the desire, does that bring it to perspective? And we'll go into discussion a little bit more. The desire to know the beyond is so powerful, and he actually in that book he concludes that don't give up. Today we don't know it, tomorrow we might. I mean, he actually says that. Don't give up the hope and keep struggling. But those mystical scientists who went before all of the modern scientists, they came to the same conclusion. That they took the atom and they started breaking it smaller and smaller and smaller, and eventually they got to a space where that we can't go beyond this. And the mystical, they started putting these things together and together and together and say, we can't go beyond this. So they did. One started breaking the things apart, the other started putting the things apart. They both came to a boundary. And that boundary of time and space. So Satyanam is defined for beyond that, prior to that boundary. The existential truth is the name. So look at the sequence. The start with one. Its basic feeling is anhadanar, it is dhunru, sound, and then having created that image, now the name, Satyanam. And Sat needs to be, when you read Sach, yes, Sat, in Gurmukhi, whenever there is a underline, ankar hai, chache de thale, that is also the same Adi Sach, same Satya. In Sanskrit it's very easy because there is there are two forms of it, but in Punjabi there are two forms of it. So having defined the name, ਹੁਣ ਕੀ ਕਰੇਗਾ? In many times we discuss here कि दूजे पासे लग गए, है ना? तू एक पासे लग जिधर लगना चाहिए था उस पासे लग. दूजा पासा केड़ा होया? Bani defines that दूजा पासा की है. What I'm trying to say? He says आपी ने आप साजियो, आपी ने रचियो now. What happened है? दुई कुदरत साजियो. What did he do? What's his second thing? कहता हूँ उसने एक तो अनेक होया. दूजा काम की कीता है? कुदरत, nature, creation. Because now there is a newly published book by Neil Walsh. Those of you who are under the title of Conversations with God. And he creates a beautiful parable there. I liked the way the model he came up with. He's trying to describe, well, what was the need for him to do this. I mean, yeah, now the Creator knows that I am, that I am. When Moses, and that's written in the Bible, that when Moses says, you have given me these 10 commandments, if I take it down now and tell them these are the commandments, who should I say gave it to me? And who will believe me? And the quotation there is, tell them, I am that I am, gave it. Because there is no other way to define it. I am that I am. So now Neil Walsh picks up on that parable and he says, okay, he knows I am that I am. No, what's the big deal? Just be there. Why to create this mess? And he says the problem is that he does not know who am I? How big am I? How small I am? How great am I? What is my glory? So in order for him to find out his glory, he breaks a part of himself and looks at it and says, am I this? Obviously the answer is no, because a part can never be equal to the whole. So when the answer comes no, he breaks another part and says, am I this? And says he keeps on creating and asking the same question, am I this? Am I this? And he's not, and ad infinitum. He's still trying to discover, who am I? Now, the same parable was done by Brahma. Brahma, after reciting 4 Vedas, and when he was ready eventually to give up the physical form, he was asked, have you known? And the answer he came back, yes, Neti. After having written about all of the possible sciences of the world, all the gyan of physical, the sea and the earth and the stars, and after writing everything and discovering everything, still came back with the answer, Neti. Neti. Neti means abhi nahi, abhi nahi, abhi nahi. Everything I look at is more than that. And that's why I remember I ran into a college graduate, and she was arguing with me, well, why can't we say that this is how big it is? You know, we have all these scientific instruments and we can see the boundaries and blah, blah, blah. And I very casually made the statement. Later on I regretted it, because I got trapped. I said, if you were to ask that question of the God himself, how great are you, he won't be able to answer it either. Think about it. If there is a creator here and we ask the question of the creator, how great are you? What would he say? The moment he says, this is how great I am, isn't that limiting him? Right? The boundary is drawn right there and then. As soon as he says, this is how large, how great, how vast I am, you are on the boundary. So then what's beyond that boundary? That question is absolutely illogical. It cannot be answered. That's what that Satnam is. That's what that existential truth is. So having said ik, having said oNkaar, having said Satnam, now what? Now it has to go into creation. Dui kudrat sajiye. What is the second word? Kartaa. Now here is a beautiful parable. The word are kartaa and a purakh. And they are coming in sequence. If the naam is existential truth, how it can be doing anything? Because it has no form, shape, nothing. And the answer is that kartaa is a being, is a doing, behaving as a dual characteristic, as a purakh. As a child, when we go to the primary class and we find out that the light travels in a straight line, and we actually conduct an experiment to prove that the light travels in a straight line, right? We take 3 cardboards, put a hole through it, and then line that 3 card at a distance of 1 foot apart, put a source of light here, and then see the light comes from the other side, then disturb the middle one and the light disappears. And the child gets a grade A because he has just proven the light travels in a straight line. Now he goes to the 10th grade and he's reading this, studying the theory of wave. Now the light becomes a wave form. It's the same light. Now he has to forget what he learned, and now he has to prove the light is not a straight line, light is a wave. And now he's conducting those experiments, and the interference circles and Newton circles and all of those, the bending of the light with this and that. We just saw the example. And by the time he gets to the undergraduate, BSc, now he has to learn that it is actually a quantum and a photon. It behaves as a matter as well as a energy. New characteristic. Because if it is only wave, it can only go straight, it cannot bend around the curve. But it bends around the curve or the earth, so it behaves as a solid mass, gravity pulls it in. The energy, the ultimate energy, started as the purest form of energy, but has to become a creation, kartaa, the being. But in order to be being, it has to be purakh. Otherwise it cannot be being. It has to manifest. Now he is not manifesting in the form of जो कि उन्होंने Moses दिखाया लंबी दाढ़ी थे हाथ लाठ लगे तो यार है. When you look at him from that dimension, he is still the energy. So purakh की बन गया ना. This the creation. Why is purakh then? I create. I have a child too. So why am I not a purakh? The reason is I and my creation are separate. They are identifiable. If the dancer is there, the dance is there. If the dancer is not there, dance is not there. But the statue is there, sculptor is there. That's why sculptor could not be used as a meditative symbol, but dancer, Shiva's Tandavanaj, all of those statues you see. The only art form that was recognized as a source of meditation or symbol of meditation was the dancing. And that is possible. ऐसा डांस हो जाए, सिर्फ डांस ही रह जाए, डांसर डिसअपियर हो जाए. कहना सौखा है करना. It is a beautiful Zen story and very difficult to grasp, but very powerful metaphor. That a king was very fond of watching the sun setting on the ocean side. Every day he would go on the side and watch it. And he started a contest in his kingdom for someone to paint the painting of the sun setting. Now the people brought different paintings and he gave them appropriate reward, but he was not satisfied. One old man brought the painting to him, and he suddenly got stunned. And he saw that there is an ocean, but on this side there is a hill, and there is a little road going on the hill, and the sun is setting, half hidden behind the hill, half visible from the ocean side on the water. So the king looks at the picture and says to the painter, "Can you tell me where does this road go behind the hill? What's behind this hill?" And the painter says, "I don't know. Let me find out." And the parable says, he went into the painting to find what's behind the hill. He hasn't come back yet. The painter became the painting. He is a purakh because he is in the creation. आपीने आप साजियो, आपीने रचियो नाओ, दुई कुदरत साजिए, कार आसन डिठो जाओ. First created it, and then what he did? कार्य आसन. उस ਵਿੱਚ बैठ गया. छुप के उस ਵਿੱਚ बैठ गया. तो की देख रहे, कहते तमाशा देख रहे, मजा कर रहे. कार्य आसन डिठो देखदा और आनंद ले रहा. जाओ. खुश हो जाओ. वो इशारा बाबे नानक ने पहले अखरां च दिता है, करता पुरख. Now the creation is there. The next two words are going to point toward a characteristic of that karta. Nirbha-o, nirvair. Now nirbha-o can be looked at two different ways. And both are valid depending upon your own viewpoint. पाओ दा मतलब हुंदा पाना, चक्कर कटना, circle. The one who is not in the cycle of time, life and death, nirbha-o, जोड़ा पाउंदा नहीं. This aspect has not been discussed in any translation, including Rajneesh. Nirbha-o, जो पाउंदा नहीं, असी पाउंदे, we are in the cycle. He is not. जो traditional translation है nirbha-o दी, nir means without, bhao means डर. Okay. Now why to bring that? दरिया किधर को जाता है? You need someone to be afraid of, to be fearful of. So since there is nobody parallel or equivalent, there is no reason to be fearful. Okay. Now this nir word is very important to understand. nir ਦਾ मतलब ये नहीं है जिन्नी साड़ी मिलिट्री है उन्हां दा असी मौत दा डर जिहड़ा है घटा देने, दबा देने. We train our people to go fight and die. That doesn't mean that they are without the fear. All it has been suppressed. It is not the modification of it. It is the absence of it that needs to be understood. Nir means without. The existence nahi hai. Usdi manipulation nahi hoi hui. It has not been modified. It has not been curbed. Gurbani emphasizes that aspect at various places. मिठ बोलड़ा जी वो सज्जन स्वामी मोरा, हम सम्मल थकी जी वो कदे ना बोले कौरा। तो की होया उसकी बाणी जी बड़ी मिठी है, स्वीट। ऑल वर्ड्स आर वेरी वेरी अट्रैक्टिव टू द माइंड। ओके, गल करनी बंदा सीख भी लेंदा है ना, मिठिया मिठिया गल्लां करनियां सीखण दी बड़ी गल है। वी कैन लर्न हाउ टू टॉक प्रॉपरली। पर जे किते गुस्सा आ जाए तो फिर असं गुस्सा नहीं वरत सकने। मीनिंग व्हाट, वी हैव एक्चुअली कल्टीवेटेड मिठ बोलना। अगली लाइन च गुरबाणी कहती है कौड़ा बोल ना जाने पूरन भगवान अवगण को ना चितारे। कहती मिठा इस करके नहीं बोलता कि उन्हें दबाया हुआ है कौड़े ने। It's very important to understand when we are trying to compare. Every characteristic that is pointed out to the ultimate is not in comparison with the other. वो सच्चा इस करके नहीं है कि झूठा बोलना बंद कर देता है, नॉन एग्जिस्टेंस है ही। We define everything with respect to the other. Everything that belongs to us always is in comparison to something else. But these characteristics are being defined for the one, there is no comparison. That's why these words have, इन्होंने सीधा कह देना जी हाँ जी उन्होंने डर नहीं लगता, इन अखरों बेइंसाफी हो जाएगी। निर्भा-ओ, वो भय रहत का मतलब यह है कि वो कॉन्सेप्ट ही नहीं, एग्जिस्ट ही नहीं करता। इट वॉज नेवर बॉर्न। टेक अ लुक एट अ लिटिल चाइल्ड। व्हेन अ चाइल्ड इज बॉर्न एंड a snake is walking by, he'll just pick it up, that's it. The concept isn't there. वो इन्हीं के बिना होशियार हो गया है कि मैंने तकड़ा करना पकड़ांगा। It's not born yet. The thought is not born. That's that nirbha-o. nirvair, exactly. दुश्मनी करने लिए भी दूजा चाहिए। दुश्मनी किधर करोगे? So where the भावना पैदा हो ही नहीं सकती, because there's no second one. If this word was understood by the mankind, all kinds of sacrifices that became the religion would have been gone. People didn't understand. Nirvair. अपनी ही क्रिएशन ਨੂੰ ਵੈਰ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਕਰੇਗਾ, और अपनी ही क्रिएशन ਨੂੰ ਭੇਟਾ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਹੈ। ਜਿਸ ਨੂੰ ਆਪ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਉਹ ਮੇਰੀ ਭੇਟਾ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ। All of the things, and Kabir makes, such a beautiful satire on it. He says, जीव बधो और धर्म चलावो, अधर्म कहो कत भाई, आपन को मुनिवर कर जानो, काको कहो कसाई। जीव बधो, by killing, sacrificing, बलि देके, those big यज्ञ, ये नहीं कले क्षमा करना कले इस्लाम में नहीं, ये विधान भी रहा है। गोमेज जग अश्वमेध यज्ञ की सी, गोमेज का जग गौ का दान करना मार के, अश्वमेध का जग घोड़े की बलि देनी। बलियां दी जाती सब खुश करना किंतु परमात्मा यज्ञ पूरा करना। आज जी बकरा ईद मनाते ने, लखां दे हिसाब नाल बकरे चढ़का के अल्लाह को खुश करते। कितों है ये कि अपनी बनाई चीज जी है मेरे अगे मार के अगे रख दे। गुरबाणी ने इसकी जड़ कट के रख दी है, निर्वैर चाहिए नहीं उसकी अपनी। ये दो characteristics define करके, now look at the beautiful, they are going side by side, the sequence, look at the sequence, ik-oNkaar, satnaam, kartaa, purakh, nirbha-o, nirvair. Now, these words were giving the feeling as if there is a physical form. डरने वाला, ना डरने वाला, डराने वाला, ना डराने वाला, बनाने वाला. No? There was a illusion created as if there's something physical. Look at the next word, it destroys the illusion right away. Akaal. Kaal has multiple meanings. Kaal means time. Kaal means shortage. It is a kaal bag area. तो तुम दोनों तरीके ना कैसे देख सकते हो आकाल he is not slave of the time, beyond the time, and that's what the saibhaN came from, beyond the time and space dimension. He is not slave of the time and space. Ya akaal, unlimited, infinite. Now, this, by creating the image of non-physical, the next word creates the physical again, moorat. Look at the sequence. Moorat. Where is the moorat? He says, look into the creation. That's where the moorat is. Don't go into the hills and the mountains. It is the mountain itself. The creation itself. And the very next word is going to destroy that image and say ajoonee. Because if it's moorat, then he must be born. Say no. Don't get trapped. Those are the concepts of the mind. The definitions and the sequence of the words and the way they are chosen, they are pointing out the behavior pattern. And the words are basically trying to say what he is not. All the words are saying what he is not. Akaal, nirbha-o, nirvair, ajoonee means what he is not. It can never be said what he is. No. It is the nature of the beast. For the reason what we said, that the intellect will never perceive something beyond, before the time, but negative, it has a possibility to capture because it is after that. Because I know, jira June that I know. June I know, right? Where I know, that I know. We can relate to that. So, since we can, the words are picked with what we relate, and then negate it. That is the whole essence of these words, that they are trying to say what he is not. Out of that, you may get an image of what he is. And that will be totally your own personal image, not somebody else's. Ajoonee. Now, Brahma actually quoted that there are 84 or lakhs or 840,000, half of them in the ocean, then half above the ocean, then what is above the ocean, half of them on the ground, and half of them in the air. Okay, that's how he divided various life forms, including the vegetation and so forth. We don't know if that is a factual number or not, and I don't think that is significant. We know that there is enough of life form on this creation. And we only know one planet. Because one of the things that I many times think in my own mind, that the entire scientific community is looking for a carbon-based life. Ammonia molecule होना चाहिए, carbon होनी चाहिए, water होना चाहिए. That's the only life we know about. And that's the only life we keep looking. Because we have no other instruments. But why can't be the life of some other form, based on some other thing? Since we cannot look for it, we have no instruments, we keep on saying, I was watching the movie Contact, in which the biggest quotation, closing remark is there life on another planet? And the answer is, well, it's a huge place. And if we are the only one, then it's a lot of wasted space.
It is not a good life.
The way we know it, that's it. We only know the ammonia-based molecules, that's it. So, that energy is not in that life form. Ajoonee, Juna de vich nahi hai. And then in conclusion, अगर जूना विच नहीं है तो फिर पैदा किस तरह हो गया? And that is the ultimate question. Is this saibhaN, self-born, self-created. Now, and this discussion will continue in the scientific community and the metaphysical community forever. As we were saying last time, I find no contradiction in saying God created himself or was there, as compared to the theory of evolution who says there was dust. Okay, so I can ask who created the dust and you will have no answer for that. Somebody starting with dust, somebody starting with an energy. It's a starting point. That's it. Gurbani does not fall into that trap at all. It doesn't want to discuss it, it's not controversial. No need to argue about it. It's saibhaN. Self-created, self-born. Actually, if you want to look at the parable of Jesus' birth, was meant to point out that sanctity, the one which is not born out of sexuality, the one who transcended the sexuality. They took it a totally different way. It's a parable trying explaining that he had transcended the bondage of sexuality from birth. They took it into the Virgin Mary birth. The parable points out somewhere else. It's not pointing to the physical anomaly, it's pointing to the spiritual dimension. Jesus had transcended, जिसको ब्रह्मचर्य कहने, ब्रह्मा वर्गा आचरण ब्रह्मचर्य. He had achieved that status on his birth. He had transcended that energy already. Was blessed with it. That was a gift to him. saibhaN. So now, the immediate question in the intellect is going to be, I want to know about it. I want to experience it, I want to find it out. I want to feel it, touch it, know it. Your doing cannot do it. It absolutely chops the legs from the theory of karma. Because karma will say, I have done this thing bad, so I will do this thing good, hence I will get this reward. So who is doing good? The same I who did bad. So I दे रही, करता दे रहा, करने वाला तो बैठा है. The one who was doing good is also there. One who was doing bad is also there. So long as there is a doer, the Creator is not going to be visible. Camera is up. The basic feeling of doing I am doing, I am talking, I am singing, I am writing, I am thinking. So long as I am meditating, I am praying, as long as that concept stays with the entity, entity will not free itself. So, Guru Prasad. Whenever it will happen, it will be a prasad. And to those who had happened, and Faridji beautifully says that, and Kabir also, कि जो होया भी और जे लोग आके कहन कि फरीद ने यानी भक्ति की है तां होया, वो कहंदा भक्ति के मुकाबले जिहड़ा रिवॉर्ड है ना, ये बच्चों का खेड लगता है। काम इन्ना कुर्बानी इन्नी थोड़ी है, इनाम इन्ना वड्डा है, दैट मैनूं शर्म आउंदी है गल कहंदे होए कि मेरी भगती मेरी। The grace is so big, that feeling of the reverence is so much that absolutely nothing ever can compare to that. But for us it is only an intellectual concept. When you get into it, and Guru Nanak chops it off, right? They say, don't you ever fall into the trap that anything you're doing will get you there. और हम तो मुश्किल हो गई, हम सारे बैठ जाएंगे फिर करने के लिए। And from this is now the start of Sikhism. And he starts right there. These 10 words are the only words which are not poetic and they are not in music. From this point onward, everything will be either poetry or poetry and music both. These were the characteristics trying to point out to the one in the most precise form. Single words. Now, if you are follower of this, you'll find that Guru Gobind Singh also did the similar thing, and he called Jap. Jap Sahib. This Bani is a Jap. Now, first thing that there is no author here. Right? Baki Bani to likhe hai Shri Rag Mahla Pehla, Dev Gandhari Mahla Duja. Rag bhi likhe hai, Mahla bhi likhe hai. Is Bani to say there is no Raga, there is no author, there is nothing. But there is a word Jap. Normally the people translate this as the title. No, it's more than a title. In there lies the message, in a single word. Because it stands by itself. If you open the Granth Sahib and look at it, that word is a single word in the entire line. There are 2 lines on this side, there are 2 lines on this side, and the word Jap with the underline for पेलों कर देता है. It's not just a title. It is an instruction. और गुरु प्रसाद नाल लिंक कर दिया. आएगा तो गुरु प्रसाद दे नाल ही, मगर जापन दे विच पैना पाएगा. In order to go through the spiritual evolutionary stage, you have to do something. Don't you ever think कि जी ओदा प्रसाद होना तो मैं कराएंगी, कुछ नहीं करना, कहते नहीं जा. But why? If it is His grace, why should I do something? He said, you're not going to please Him. You are going to quiet the noise in your own mind so that you can hear that soundless sound. It is not for Him. Bhakti usdi nahi kiti jandi. It is a misconception. उसनू क्यों लोड़ा भगती करने? अगर उसनू भी अपनी सिफत सुनने का चार्ज हैगा तो फिर वो भी साडे वर्गा ही हो गया. जिस तरह सानू के आने का जी तुसी बड़े चंगे बड़े खुश हो जाएंगे. ये नहीं पता कि हम फसन लगे हैं, कोई ना कोई काम कह देना है ना, अक्सर होंगे ना। जे आउंदे जरा मुस्कुराहट मिल जाए तो जेब से हथ चला जाता पहला ही, अज की गल है की मंगना अज, पता है ना। तो साढ़े वर्गा ही हो गया फिर वो भी, कई उन्होंने चंगा कहो तो सानू चंगा बन नहीं। इट्स ए मिसनामर कि उसकी भक्ति करो जी, उसकी भक्ति नहीं कर रहे, की कर रहे हैं, ऐसा कर्म कर रहे हैं जिहदे नाल अपना अंदर साफ हुंदा जावे, अपना मन चुप हो जाए, अपनी कर्म इंद्रियां, ज्ञान इंद्रियां, श्रुतियां जिहड़ियां ने अपने कंट्रोल च होने शुरू हो जाए। द होल ऑफ द एफर्ट of all techniques is to tune the instrument. राग सुन तो पहला अपनी तार नू, अपने साज नू सुर च कर, नहीं तो सुनाई नहीं देगा। We are tuning our senses, mind, body system, so that that soundless sound, that clapping of a single hand, we can perceive with the instrument that we all have. And every one of us, no exception, every one of us. ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੇਲ ਫੀਮੇਲ ਦਾ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਜੈਂਡਰ ਹੀ ਹੈ। ਸਿੱਖ और शिष्य is a neutral gender. गुरु नानक ने अपने डिसाइपल दे ਲਈ वर्ड सिख इसके वास्ते वरतया थ्रू आउट लाइफ। सिख, keep on evolving, keep on growing. It's a never ending drama. ਅਸੀਂ तो उस्ताद बन के बह जाने चाहिए नहीं। Sikh stays a Sikh until it has become tu kartaa tu bhaya. Until that state, Guru Nanak says, you are a Sikh. Stay a Sikh. Continue. So that word jap is actually pointing out to that karma which will help us to get to that Guru Prasad. That we will tune ourselves spiritually so that we can hear that. So,